3D scans hunt for facial traits of autism. 3D imaging and statistical analysis techniques could lead to a screening tool for autism among young children. The technique, which identifies facial measurements, could also provide clues to the condition's genetic causes. We want to detect the specific facial traits of the face of a child with autism, says Yi, associate professor of computer science in the College of Engineering at the University of Missouri. Doing so might help us define the facial structures common to children with autism and potentially enable early screening for the disorder. Autism is a spectrum of closely related disorders diagnosed in patients who exhibit a shared core of symptoms, including delays in learning to communicate and interact socially. Early detection of autism in children is the key for treatments to be most effective and produce the best outcomes. Expanding upon previous studies using two-dimensional imaging, Yuan, working with Judith Miles, Professor Emerita of Child Health Genetics in the Thompson Center for Autism and Neurodevelopmental Disorders, used a system of cameras to photograph and generate 3D images of children's faces. The children selected were between 8 and 12 years old. One group of children had been diagnosed with autism by the Thompson Center, the other group consisted of typically developing children. Researchers photographed the faces of children using three-dimensional imaging, which allowed scientists to measure distances along the curvature of the face rather than in a straight line as had been done in previous tests. Duan then ran sophisticated statistical analyses to measure minute differences in the facial measurements of each group. More than coincidence, it all started from a clinical observation. Miles says, "Over years of treating children, I noticed that a portion of those diagnosed with autism tend to look alike with similar facial characteristics. I thought perhaps there was something more than coincidence at play. The differences were not abnormal, rather they appeared analogous to similarities observed among siblings." Using three-dimensional images and statistical analysis, we created a fine-tuned map of children's faces and compared those measurements to the various symptoms they exhibit. By clustering the groups based on their facial measurements and recording their autism symptoms, we wanted to determine whether subgroups based on facial structure correlate with autism symptoms and severity. The group's analysis revealed 3 distinct subgroups of children with autism who had similar measurement patterns in their facial features. These subgroups also shared similarities in the type and severity of their autism symptoms. Miles says that next steps include inviting other research groups to replicate our findings and to perform DNA analyses to look for specific genes associated with each subgroup. Identifying genes associated with each subtype of autism could potentially lead to the development of more effective treatments and drug therapies, she says. The team's paper received partial funding from the Department of Defense's Medical Research and Development Program. The findings appear in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders. Source: University of Missouri, republished from futurity.org. Under Creative Commons License 3.0. Read the original. Next, read A Growing Chorus Objects to Confucius Institutes at American Universities. A Massachusetts lawmaker is the latest dissenting voice against the presence of Confucius Institutes on American college campuses. Managed directly and funded by the Chinese regime, Confucius Institutes, CIS, have been criticized by concerned Read more: tariffs, Trump's prelude to ending unfair trade practices. President Donald Trump's new tariffs on imported steel and aluminum look like an effort that goes beyond its stated rationale of preserving national security. The tariffs could be the first of a number of. Read more: White House fires Trump's personal assistant. The White House fired President Donald Trump's personal assistant, John McEndy, on Monday, March 12, Wall Street Journal reported, citing two senior administration officials. McEndy was escorted from the White House on Monday, according to. Read more.